Hi, this is Andrew, and this is Keen On, the daily now.tv chat show with some of the world's leading thinkers and writers. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, August the 24th, 2023. Earlier today, we broadcast a conversation I had with my old friend, the Turkish journalist now living in Germany, Ece Temelkuran, on social media's failure to change the world. Ece was very much involved in the Gazi Park protests in 2013, very active on social media, has over 2 million followers on Twitter, and we talked about her disappointment, I guess, with social media in terms of affecting social change. Another Turkish journalist who's been on the show recently is Umut Ozkirimli. He's the author of another controversial book, Cancelled: The Left Way Back from Woke, which talks about what he views, at least, as the intolerance of the left, in many ways bound up with social media. And I thought I'd have him back on the show to talk about his sense of the history of social media and whether or not, like Ece, he's been disappointed. He's joining us from Istanbul today, where he's on vacation. Umut, you normally live in Barcelona, where you teach at a couple of universities. Where were you in May or in the hot summer of 2013, exactly 10 years ago, between May and August?
I was there, actually. I was there too. I mean, I was living in Sweden back then. But then, of course, you know, when the Gezi protest started, well, that was a very exciting point for all of us. I mean, I wasn't in exile, by the way. Let me just put it. I mean, I had a certain kind of reputation, but I wasn't kind of big enough or important enough to be canceled at that point. But during the Gezi protests, I became one. I just jumped on a plane and came to Istanbul, spent a week or so there, I think right before the government intervened. Because the day I left, it was a Saturday, I recall very well. I don't know the exact date, but that was when the police, the riot police, intervened to clear the park from the, you know, the occupiers, basically. And we were in a restaurant quite far away from the park, but we could, even from in the restaurant that we were kind of having dinner, we could smell the canisters, you know, the tear gas and everything. We could hear the shotguns and everything. Yeah,
I've talked extensively to Ece and Solly as well. Solly Ozel has been on the show, another friend of yours, about the role of social media in all this.
Yeah.
How do you see the place of social media, both at Gezi, but also more broadly in the Arab Spring, the promise and the way in which many Western technologists, people like Mark Zuckerberg, saw social media as a vehicle for social and political change?
Well, definitely not. I mean, it started that way, yes. And the two examples that, well, basically the only good example you could give is, well, I'm talking about from a global political perspective, was the Arab Spring. In that case, it was Facebook. And then, you know, during the various revolutions, riots, because, you know, at the same time at Gezi, there were protests in Brazil, for instance. I remember that in Palestine, they were opening up the flags of the Turkish flags and everything. So at this particular moment, between 2010, 13, 14, it still had an emancipatory or liberationist perspective as well. It was helping at least people to communicate.
When you were walking around Gezi, when you were there, when you came back from Sweden, were people all on their smartphones, tweeting, updating on Facebook?
Yeah, because that was the way that people communicating. So people were kind of, you know, exchanging ideas, things that they need, or sharing the spots that police was kind of, you know, setting up barricades. it was very helpful in terms of communicating with the rest of the world. I mean, I myself took several Swedish journalists with me from the mainstream newspapers, and I arranged interviews with them, and I helped them, so it was a window opening up to the rest of the world. And the government, just like any other government in other parts of the world, quickly realized the potential of social media, and they started the blackouts. So they were jamming in and around Gezi protests and etc. But I guess, I don't know. After that, I think, there's still one element of it that was still useful for political change, because, there's a potential of things going viral on social media, and that will be also the curse that we probably are going to talk about. There's still something that, you can incite, you can trigger change somehow, for a good or a bad cause. I mean, I used this potential fully in 2016, when we needed about $1.5 million to take my little boy, who was suffering from cancer, to a clinical trial in New York, Sloan Kettering Hospital. And thanks to my high profile, kind of my networks and everything, we were able to collect $250,000, basically $250,000 in 10 days. Now, this wouldn't have happened without Twitter.
Was this mostly in 2016? Was this
was
mostly
in 2016.
This money was raised through Twitter or Facebook?
Twitter, mostly Twitter. We shared it on other platforms as well, but it was Twitter, and it wasn't, big donations, because we kept track of, obviously, of everything. About 3,500,000 people contributed to it. I received, seriously, I mean, like very, very emotional messages from, like, a student saying, Umut Hocam, I don't have money to eat that much, but I mean, I'm just going to skip lunch today and send $10 to Luca, for instance, that kind of stuff. So it was small amounts of money coming from a lot of people, and 80% of the money came from Turkey. But from the rest, the 20%, people who read my books, mostly the academic community.
Did you see a connection between the promise of social media in terms of Gezi in 2013, when you brought the Swedish journalists who were involved?
Yeah.
And the promise of social media in terms of raising money for your sick son?
Yes, exactly. And that's the power of social media, which also it's the curse of it, because if it's used in a good, I mean, it's like every single human invention, I guess. I don't know, it could be used in a good way, it could be used in a bad way. Now, the problem is there are two things. One, we have no control over it. But two, as we discover more and more clearly these days, if there's a monopoly, as Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, etc. I mean, this recent article by Ramon in New Yorker about Twitter, Elon Musk, was terrible. Because of the monopoly, then you don't know how the algorithms work. So I mean, they can not only interfere with the first part, is about the uncontrollable aspects of it is what leads to cancel culture, this and
right,
that.
I want to get to cancel culture. We'll do that after the break, and your own experience and the way in which social media essentially turned on you. But I want to talk a little bit more about the political promise of social media. Were there particular dates, Umut, where you suddenly realized that social media in political terms wasn't going to deliver on all this promise? In terms of the Arab Spring, certain dates in Egypt, in Tunisia, of course, in Turkey?
Again, in my own experience, Andrew, actually, because in 2013, when I was tweeting about Gezi, my profile raised, and so this is before my son's crowdfunding. Immediately, the government basically realized that there is a potential there that was used during the Arab Spring. So they established their army of trolls. So in 2013, immediately, because I was a supporter of Gezi, then I became, quote unquote, important and more, because, you know, I was in Sweden and I could tweet freely about the government intervention. I've edited a collection on the Gezi protests as well in 2013. So that made me a target of the government, pro-government, basically social media trolls. And at that point, I was referred to be as a pro-PKK, you know, the Kurdish separatist group, and pro-Kurdish terrorist, basically. And then I started to receive death threats. Because, I mean, I didn't take them
Remember
seriously.
the first death threat you had? I mean, after a while, I guess they
just right.
predictable.
It was during the Gezi protests, yes. Right after, I mean, I went back to Sweden. The intervention had happened. People were killed, and I was like tweeting frantically about it. And at that point, you know, I became a target. And I remember, you know, I was living in Lund, a small university town in the south of Sweden. I didn't take them seriously because I didn't think that anybody would really try to kill me or anything. But then I received one particular threat from a guy who was freelancing for Turkish national TV in Stockholm. I mean, so this was an open account, not an anonymous one. And he wrote a tweet saying that he is in a train from Malmö to Lund, which is a 10-minute distance. I doubt it was real, but it was serious enough to be taken seriously by the university and the local police. So I carried an alarm button for about 3 months.
And what did he threaten? That he was going to kill you?
Oh, yeah. He's coming for me. Yes. He said he's coming for me. And because I had a little son at that time, like not even a year old, and my family, I mean, okay, we weren't together with his mother, but, you know, it's still my family. And also the university was very sensitive about the students, of course, security, because they were having this a lot, they told me, with Israel-Palestine issue and Russia and Ukraine thing.
So all this was done publicly. He tweeted publicly. That
Everything is public.
Did you complain to Twitter?
Oh yeah, of course. Nothing.
And
happened.
What was the response?
Nothing happened.
Did they even communicate with you?
Yeah, they said, you know the drill. I mean, you know, when J.K. Rowling tweets, even J.K. Rowling, you know, she received a bomb manual, and Twitter said this is not against our community guidelines. That was the thing. I mean, then there was a guy called I think Wake Up Attack or something like that. We knew who he was. He was a pro-government guy living and teaching in an American university. We provided all the details, but so that's the thing that I hate the way the things that Elon Musk is doing to Twitter, whatever, X, whatever it is. But the point is, Twitter was not that better before Elon Musk take over either. It's just that now it's tilted towards the right. It's kind of a right-wing platform. Before that, there was no safeguarding either. None of these things. When my accounts were hacked at some point, with thinking this was Facebook and Twitter, with thinking it was this was after the money fundraising. So, and I know that it was a Russian hacker.
So this was in 2016. Why would a Russian hacker want to hack your social media?
I have no clue. I mean, the guy was the IP of the guy was in Bangladesh. But he said he was Russian himself because we've submitted all the correspondence, which was obviously done on his part through Google Translate, to the police. And the police said, oh, that's a scammer. Don't even. And I was naive enough in 2016, 17. Still, I wasn't using two-factor authentication. That was the reason. The police's guess, the Swedish police's guess, was that it was because of this very famous fundraising that we've done, because it went international.
And this was the fundraising for your son.
Yes, exactly. So basically, the police said,
why would people want to hurt you because of that?
Oh, not hurt. He was asking for money.
Oh,
simple as that. You know, it just said if you don't, he was contacting my friends. He basically took control of my Facebook and Twitter account, Twitter back then was quick. When they are trying to, when they get hold of your account, this is pre Elon Musk Twitter, you could get it back in an hour. Facebook, I spent 3 hours trying to reach someone, not even a machine. And that stayed like that for about, I don't know, 6 hours, 7 hours. I couldn't get hold of my, and I know that this was related to my son. That was police's theory, but that was also something that I suspected it because, I didn't have an Instagram account back then.
How many followers did you have on Twitter, or do you have on Twitter?
At that point, above 30,000.
Yeah.
Facebook, I have about 5,000, which is the limit. I didn't have an Instagram account, but the Facebook group of cancer patients that we were a member of, it's a closed group. A parent of a kid with cancer wrote to the mother of my son, Erika, and said that there is an account on Instagram with our son's pictures asking for money for his ailment. This was 1 year after we've done the collection, and neither Erika nor me had an Instagram account back then. So immediately we went in and we saw that, yes, there was a fake account with my son's picture asking for money. Now, the parent recognized our son, Luca, and she warned us, and we took it down. So this wasn't the first, and then the hacking happened. So it was not, I don't think it was very coincidental. I mean, basically the guy said, if you want your account back, give me $1,000.
Right. So the clouds are darkening. We're going to take a break now and then talk to Umut about his nightmare on social media, beginning, I think, in about 2019 and 20. He's the author of Cancelled, and we're going to take a short break now for a video about our sponsor, Liberties, a quarterly journal of culture and politics. Excellent journal, and one that defends free speech and the very kind of liberalism that seems to be under assault from social media. So we're going to be right back in a couple of seconds.
Beyond the news, the noise, there is nuance, insight. Liberties is not just a journal of ideas. It's a meteor of intelligent substance. It's the place to be for engaged citizens. Politics, opinion, substance. Liberties is a triumph for freedom of thought. A quarterly of urgency, of cultural exploration, of intellectual delight, of immaculate prose. It's invaluable. Subscribe now or find Liberties at your favorite bookseller.
And you can check out more about Liberties at libertiesjournal.com. We are talking with Umut Ozkirimli, the author of Cancelled, and a man who was himself cancelled. So we've talked about your son, Umut. When did your particular nightmare, when were you cancelled? What are the key dates here?
Yeah, the key date would be, I guess, I mean, there were some things happening between 2018-20, which led me to lawyer up, basically, as they would say in America, and sent cease and desist letters to someone who was accusing me of various things. And then after we sent the second cease and desist letter to this person went online on the 1st of June 2020 and shared a series of 9 tweets, not using my name, but implying that I was a harasser, basically.
So again, let's deal with the social media aspect of this. Someone was accusing you of something. We don't necessarily need to get into those details.
No.
How central was social media in this? And they were complaining to your university. You were teaching in Lund in Sweden. You're a distinguished political scientist.
No, but back then I had already left Sweden. That's the social media aspect. Well, I'll give you very quickly. It's like this was a very well planned campaign because, I mean, this person tweeted in Turkish and played to a Turkish audience. And the tweets in a couple of hours, basically, I know the numbers because, there was a court process and I was this person was found
And this
guilty.
was the summer of June 2020, is that right?
Yes, summer of June 2020.
Right, so some of these images are on, so it's early June 2020.
Exactly. And I mean, within an hour, it was obvious that, this person was trying to avoid a defamation suit. So other people, anonymous accounts, named me immediately. The tweets, I remember, within a couple of days, they were retweeted 1,100 times. And then there were like 3,000 likes, something like that. Now, in a country where there are 13 million Twitter users, this amounts to, millions of people, basically. I became a trending topic for a couple of hours. That's how I found out about it. I wasn't aware. I was moving houses in Barcelona. I had already left Sweden after my son's death in 2018. So I became a trending topic in Turkey for a couple of hours, basically. The whole thing was presented as Turkish academia's Me Too moment and all of that. And yeah,
so you were accused by a woman of some sort of sexual transgression.
Exactly. That wasn't actually even the accusation. That's the tricky part. I mean, that's the first kind of worst aspect of this social media. I mean, falsehoods, basically. There's the viral aspect. I mean, I when I was working on my book, I discovered that falsehoods spread 7 times faster than truths, and that's an MIT research. And I was never accused of sexual harassment or harassment, actually. And this wasn't even a deal. That was already completely over. There was nothing. But all of a sudden, within a couple of hours, these allegations that that stemmed from a person that I had some sort of a relationship with outside academia became, first, a matter of academia. 2, from harassment, it kind of progressed into sexual harassment. So I became a sexual harasser, serial sexual harasser, and at some point, even a potential murderer. This was on social media. And then the same night, the Turkish government intervened, jumped on the opportunity, and the chief prosecutor of the Turkish Republic started an investigation about me. Even though they don't have any jurisdiction, there's no concrete accusation, there's nothing, within 24 hours.
So going back to Gezi, you were, as you know, you were there on the ground. You were then targeted by people you think were involved with the Turkish government. Is this all political? Ultimately, when the smoke clears, was it a plot to undermine critics of the Turkish government like yourself?
I mean, not the origin of the accusation, because I know the person, I know the motives and everything. But I mean, the way in which the government was involved, and on all of a sudden, I mean, that's why I wrote the book, The Cancelled, a critique of the progressive circles, because the people who jumped on the bandwagon were cooperating with the state. And the state this time was accusing me in 2020, so 7 years later, of being an affiliate of the Pennsylvania-based kind of Gülen movement.
But the government in Turkey is conservative, is right-wing. The subtitle of your book is The Left Way Back from Woke. How is this bound up with the issue of the left and woke?
Because these were the people, my own kind of, I would have called my own tribe, you want to use that word, political tribe, were the people who were canceling me. These were the people who were spreading the lies. Now, the government joined in precisely because of my personality, and they didn't, as I said, from being a Kurdish sympathizer, I became a kind of a Muslim sympathizer, this clerical group or something like that. But the point is, they weren't doing the cancellation. They jumped on the bandwagon of something that was already started by so-called progressives, feminists, etc., etc. And when the crowd...
what's the agenda of these progressives? Are they just men haters? Are they picking on you for political reasons? Are you a complete innocent?
I mean, this particular person had her own motives, and that was, there was money involved and everything. The other people joined in for several different reasons. I guess one particular reason is, okay, I mean, there are personal issues. Like, I pissed off a lot of people for different reasons, because I engage in polemics, I criticize. I actually don't belong to any tribe, which I realize now is something that people don't like. I mean, of course, I'm a self-defined progressive, but I was not a member of these groups, any particular group in that sense. So different people jumped on the bandwagon for different reasons. But in the end, it was the feminists and those people who were doing that. Another really important aspect, and I really want to stress this here before we move on, is that after I published the documents which showed, because it wasn't he said she said situation. I had hundreds of documents proving and that's why I won in court, proving my innocence. When I published those, there were people, women and feminists, who realized that this was a hoax, and immediately, and that's where everything becomes really complicated. Within a week or two, I was being defended by a number of feminists that I haven't even ever met in my life. So these people were accusing.
So ultimately, doesn't that suggest that all this was a bit of a storm in the teacup? That people are
exactly,
accused for one reason or another of stuff that they didn't do, and then bad people come out of the woodwork. Some are anonymous, some are working for foreign governments, some are interested in making money for themselves. But ultimately, this thing righted itself.
Yes, but storm in a teacup with serious real life consequences. So that's why your analogy, it's in the end, it's correct. But what happens, isn't this what we're talking about, social media? Yes, in the end, it's a storm in a teacup. What we did after this teacup, I went through several meetings with my employers, because all of them were warned and told that
this was in Barcelona.
This was in Barcelona.
You already left Lund.
I had already left Lund, but also other institutions that I was affiliated with in the past, they were all told. Colleagues were contacted and told not to cooperate with me. My publishers were contacted, previous publishers, not the publisher of Cancelled, and told not to cooperate with me. I lost 2 projects. One was a memoir about my son's journey. The Turkish publisher of that memoir canceled the contract. And
by this point, your son had died.
He had died, and I was writing his memoir. I was trying to recover from, PTSD, and that was, also a therapeutical way of doing it. And because my son and I were communicating in Turkish, I was writing this in Turkish, and the publisher canceled out. And then there was also an international documentary that we were shooting with a Swedish and Danish directors and producers. That also went down the drain. So basically, I lost 2 projects about my son who had nothing to do with all of these things. Now, the psychological impacts of it, I never recovered from PTSD for another year. My mother's son was dragged into courts. She had to make public statements because people were saying in the teacup, during the storm, that we actually used the donations on lawyers and things like that I was harassing women while my son was dying. Like, Andrew, this is not a storm in a teacup, fine, but that's what really pisses me off.
Well, it wrecks people's lives, and that's really the story here. It's wrecked your life in many ways. Umut, let's end. You've referred to Elon Musk a couple of times. The Ronan Farrow piece just published in the New Yorker about his power over government. What needs to happen? We began this conversation talking about the promise of Gezi and the role of social media, and then much of the rest has been about how social media has destroyed people's lives, undermined democracy. What, in your view, needs to happen with social media to rekindle its promise, or should we just give up on it and go back to real life?
I can think of a couple of ways in which it could be improved, but I don't think they will happen in real life. First of all, the monopolies have to be broken. There has to be many players in it. And secondly, we need full transparency. We don't know the algorithms. We don't know how they interfere with politics, with elections, and all of that. They're not, disclosing the documents or their workings. Then we know that through this article, but it wasn't that much of a secret. Elon Musk has business deals with various authoritarian governments, etc. I mean, and it's not only about Elon Musk. I mean, the American state, according to that article, was negotiating with Musk in order for him to keep Starlink available during the war in Ukraine. So basically, I don't see how this could be improved because, and it's a very powerful tool. It is like a nuclear weapon, actually, because once it explodes, the after effects remain. Basically, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. It's a big deal over here too. I've seen the Oppenheimer movie. It's not the explosion that counts. It's the death and the wreckage that comes afterwards. So how much of Brexit is caused by Russian interference with this? We know now through Ronan Farrow's article that for a couple of days or weeks, the Ukrainian troops couldn't advance because Elon Musk was cutting their communication. This is This is a huge power. If we cannot control it, and I don't think we can, then yeah, I would rather go back to the good old days where we were using our phones only to, I don't know, to watch something and to call each other. Simple as that.